Before and after. Can you tell the difference? There is a subtle difference. I apply some hair strokes up at the front of the eyebrow. You may look at her eyebrows thinking you don't relate. That's okay, because this video is really going to be all about applying a little bit of hair strokes or these angle lines to make it look like hair. I am determined to show you guys the best way to do that because it's the most natural look. With the pomade, it's going to stay on all day. This is really great for anyone that wants some background hair strokes. If you have sparse eyebrows, if you have holes in the eyebrow, you just need a couple of lines to blend right in. With a little bit of practice and my guidance, you're going to be so surprised how beautiful and how easy it's going to look. So when you're applying hair strokes up at the front or anywhere really, I always like to apply a little bit of concealer stick. This is a Pro Pencil base one, I believe. It's an eyeshadow base as well. If you apply a generous amount underneath your eyebrows first, I have an old brow tattoo and I have a little bit of concealer over it, which is why it looks a little ashy. But you know what? Did you notice how dark the brows are looking once you put some highlighter underneath? That is something you can also consider doing. If you're not sure how to fill in your eyebrows yet, do something like this and make sure your eyebrows look a little darker. This is going to serve as a guideline. Up at the front, when you're doing, or anywhere again, this is going to help kind of create that guideline stencil, if you will. And I'm going to use two different colors, the Dip Brow Granite and Medium Brown. The Granite's a little too dark. Medium brown is a little too light. So if you mix the two together, it has a little bit more of a, I don't know, it just suits her much better, but you don't have to do that. I'm using the Granite on myself. So listen, brush 12, brush 14, you got to make sure you use one of those brushes because you don't want to use the powder angle brush, which is 7B. You want to use something like this. You notice that I grabbed a tiny bit. You're going to use only the longest part of the brush. That's because the longest part is what's going to create that thin stroke. The shorter part of the brush tends to be a little bit thicker and you get heavy-handed. Look, okay, now I'm going to guide you right here. Okay, so it's going right at the front of that base of that highlighter I put on. Then I'm just going with the light to medium pressure, using the longest part only. Okay, keep that in mind. So you're going back to the original light concealer, then going straight in an angle, not straight up like a landing strip. Okay, in an angle with light pressure. Now, when you get the product out of the pot, use a little bit of hydrating oil to loosen up the dip brow because you're probably thinking mine's a little dry. Or you can use your hand and just kind of warm it up, but make sure the brush keeps going back and forth. That way you have that nice sharp application. So, you know, excuse me, because I'm so close to you right now. So the longest part, you notice right here, I'm just going very slowly in an angle, light touch, and I'm not blending mine in too much because I want you to see the lines. That is the most important thing. Okay, so over here, I'm actually just going right over her own eyebrow and just going the same direction. Again, using the longest part of the brush with just light little quick scratches. It doesn't have to be perfect. Why am I doing this at the end of the eyebrow? Just to add a little texture. Do you need to? Probably not. She doesn't need it either, but that's just an extra thing that you may, like say you have a hole over here or you want your arch to be a little higher. That's something that, and you know, if the hairs grow this way, go this way. If the hair grows that way, go that way. You don't really have to do that. You can just go straight across or straight in an angle all the way through. Sometimes that's fun because that's kind of in right now, right? So you can just go in an angle. Again, I hope that I'm not as blurry, but anyway, so there you go. Light strokes, and you can, I'm just purposefully allowing the hair strokes to see, so you can see it, meaning like I'm not blending it in too much. Okay, so this is what I want you to try. Now this brush is an older brush. I think we still have it. It's like my brush 18 that I use always. This is the time to blend it in, right? You can blend in the highlighter, and there you go. Do you see the hair strokes? I don't know if I hope I'm not getting too blurry here, but you see those hair strokes. Now, you don't, again, have to have it so perfectly up in the front like that, but this is just so nice to use or learn to get it in between the gaps, because a lot of us have it sparse. A lot of us have gaps or holes. And if you do these little lines very carefully, The pomades allows you to work with this slowly because it's creamy. It doesn't dry immediately. So you can work with it. If you see a hole, you can do this. I like my ends right here to be a little sharp, which is why that's when I just kind of drag it down. But right here, I like this little wispy, fluffy look, which is kind of in right now. It isn't, because it just gives it a fuller look. Once you've established those lines, you can go back. Now since I'm done with the model, it's all about me. Once you've done that, you can go back and go right in between those lines. Sometimes you can do these lines spread apart. You know what I mean? You can go like line here, and then line here. And then you can go in between the lines. Again, you notice that I'm using the longest part, and that's it. That way you're having, it allows you to apply the least amount of pressure. So again, just right here. Now, if you want a higher arch, which is right here, high here, by that I mean the middle of the nostril, over the iris or pupil in an angle, right here, that's your arch. You can kind of drag it up like this, right? And then smooth that with your finger. I love my finger. It's so necessary. And then, of course, just spoolie brush. So if there's some areas that it's a little too dark, just scratch over it with a spoolie. Tone it down, but you don't want to press too hard. With that makeup right here, it's like this side's really flat. And you know what? Naturally, this side is much more flat compared to this side. And that is normal and natural with most of us in the world. So if you think you're the only one with one arch a little higher, that is not true. So, sometimes you can try to make up for that by applying some color right up here higher. So that way it's slightly more raised. Then it can match up a little bit with the naturally higher side, but you don't want to over exaggerate and just try to make it like, oh, it's perfectly even now. And then when you get an overall look of your face, you're like, okay, now it looks a little funny. You could try to go a little bit higher here, but not by much. If you do that, your face starts looking off, right? Because our eyes are a little bit smaller than the other side, a little bit. And then it just kind of goes down a little bit lower than the other side. So by just trying to raise it perfectly, it's just, and as you age, our face starts shifting a little bit. I know, good times, right? So just go a little bit higher here. Now I'm just gonna look a little off here. A little higher here, just to kind of bounce a tiny bit here. And then here, meaning here. Okay, so, and then you wanna go up in the front. Anytime you raise the arch, you want to add a little bit of color here, because then it's going to look like a ski slope. You want the front to be raised a little bit, so that way it makes more sense. Yeah, that's the better way to say it. It makes more sense. But the higher you go here, the thicker and weirder it gets down here. That's why you want to be a little bit conservative. I'm not going to be all that like perfect with this right now, but you get the idea. Remember, it's not that dark, right? But if you do this underneath the eyebrows, what's happening? My eyebrows are getting darker, and you can really see my eyebrows. Again, I'm not going to blend it in that well, but I just want you to see the big difference it makes just by doing something like this. And everything, of course, will be written in the descriptions. I do tag the specific colors, but for some reason, it doesn't quite come up. Some of them do, so it helps me if you purchase it that way. But don't worry, everything will be written in the descriptions. And thank you for the comments. That really does help, because then I know what I'm doing right, wrong, what I can continue to do. It helps me to just create more content. Thank you for the models, because they're, I'm grateful. Without them, I couldn't do this, right? So I thank you for them. And yeah, I thank them so I can do it for you. My speech is sometimes all over the place. I don't know why, because my brain is over here, over there. I hope you can relate. Thank you for joining me, for your patience. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. And I will see you guys next week.